Well, I'm very excited today because we're going to talk about my favorite subject, which is intonation. And they say that intonation is what the dog hears. So it's really important to, at least in English, to use intonation correctly, because what we do is we recognize the patterns, and then from there we know what the person either feels or is intending, right? So we're thinking about emotions and we're thinking about verbs, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. This is, if you're watching this live, this is June 2023, and we're talking about basic intonation. So there's a bunch of patterns that we're gonna go over today, and I want you to get those patterns perfect, how to do the intonation for that, because next month is July, and we talk about advanced intonation. So we talk about things like sarcasm, rhetorical questions, things that are a lot more advanced, honestly, and getting this basic intonation down is going to be really, really helpful. And so, of course, we care because we want to communicate better with people, and we want to show them what we're feeling and what we're thinking through our words, and we do that in English through intonation. Of course, gestures are helpful, right? Facial expressions, these things are all really, really helpful, but one thing we do a lot in English is we intonate a lot more than in other languages. So, to connect with people better, that's why we care about intonation. And we got to get basic intonation in order to do the advanced stuff. So, that being said, you might want to be able to hide that as well, right? Sometimes you want to connect, but sometimes you really want to disconnect too, and you don't want people to know what you're thinking or feeling or intending. And so knowing how to mask that in your voice might be helpful sometimes. Let's go over a couple of terms. We're going to first talk about the terms, and then we're going to talk about some strategies, some techniques, and all the patterns that you need to know. But first, I want to say, if any of this is difficult, if any of this is confusing, I'm doing these free master classes, but also I have free office hours on Wednesday. Every week on Wednesday, we have free office hours on my Discord, and you're going to see the link down below in the description of the video. And I want to say that we're also starting a new thing, which is this month only. It's a challenge club. So I don't like to call it a course because most people don't finish courses. It's a challenge. Every day you watch a little video of me, about 3 minutes, and then you make a video using this intonation technique. So if you're interested in that, this month it's free. It's a free trial. So down below, you'll see how to contact me for that. This is called the Accent Challenge Club, and we're doing it also over on Discord. My office hours are on Discord. Everything I do is over on Discord. That's where I host my community. So we know why we care about intonation, but there's a couple of terms we have to clear up, right? Because I know when you start looking online, you try to do this on your own, it can be a little difficult. So I want to throw some words out there and tell you what I mean. I'm saying intonation. Let's use the word intonation today. There's also a word pitch, right? And I want to clarify those two because I need pitch for intonation. We said intonation is the patterns. And the patterns of what? The patterns of the pitch. And the pitch is happening right here. I'm going to show you how to get better at controlling that. But the pitch is here. And if you were to think about, let's say, a violin or ukulele or guitar, a stringed instrument, it's got strings, and when you pluck one of the strings, right, you have a certain note. That's its pitch, right? And you can change that, but the string itself is the pitch, right? And maybe you have an A string and an F string and a G string and a C string, whatever those strings are, they already have a specific pitch. That's their note. We can measure that with the frequency. We can say it's this number of hertz. That's our pitch. And our vocal folds are also vibrating. So just like that string might be vibrating, our vocal folds are vibrating and they have a certain pitch. And we control that pitch, right? Just like on the string, we might press it in certain places. We're going to control the pitch. So our pitch is measured in hertz. It's a frequency. We change it. The patterns that we change it to, that equals intonation. That's the key thing. That's the key thing. But you're going to see some other words out there. So you've got intonation. And then what if you have like tone, right? Intonation, tone. I can see how you might equate those to being the same. And in one sense, they are. Tone can be, let's say you're writing an essay. And your teacher says, oh yes, the tone of your essay is very what? Very academic. Oh, the tone of your essay is very comedic, right? In a way, that's kind of about feeling or intention, right? Or overall kind of things that we're getting from that. So in that way, tone can be quite related to what we say, but also people kind of can confuse that with the idea of what we call tonal languages and the tone in tonal languages. So intonation, tone, tonal languages, I can see how that might be confusing. So in a tonal language, for example, Mandarin, you have tones, meaning patterns of pitch or pitch alone, which, here's the key difference, is going to change the vocabulary, right? The famous example is how in Mandarin you've got this word ma, M-A, we would write M-A, ma, but how you use your pitch in your vocal folds and how high or low or flat or moving it goes, where it goes, that's going to tell you a different vocabulary word. It could be mother, it could be horse, I believe the verb scold, as well as hemp, I think. So it's got 4 tones. That means the same, what we would consider word, said in a different intonation or tone, can actually be a different vocabulary word each time. So that's really, really different. And so if you come from a tonal language, right, you probably have a pretty good mastery of your pitch and your tone, your intonation, your ability to do that, but we use it in a completely different way. For us, it's not about vocabulary. It doesn't change the meaning of the words. Our intonation is the pattern, a recognizable pattern that we all recognize, that's going to say either feeling or it's going to say intonation, intonation, right? So I want to clarify that a little bit. If you're here watching this live, you're more than welcome to add any comments in the box, right? And I'll get to those comments or questions. And also afterwards, as we said, every Wednesday, I'm going to be there for office hours. So if that changes and you have questions later, by all means, let me know. So we've got the idea of what we mean when we say certain things. So now we're going to do some practice and we're going to talk about some of those patterns, right? Remember, this is basic intonation. Next month, we're going to be talking about advanced intonation. If I were you, I would definitely get in on my free trial for my Accent Challenge Club, because next month it's going to be even harder. And you need about 10 minutes a day maximum for these things. There's a 3-minute video. You watch me, you read about it, then all these things we're talking about, but more. And then you do a 1-minute video each day. And that's the challenge, right? I know videoing yourself is a big deal. I know that taking 10 minutes out of your day is a big deal. So let's give it a try, see if you can finish this. It's a challenge. So we said pitch. I've got pitch, right? My vocal folds, if you think of them, they're kind of like rubber bands or those thick exercise bands that you use. So imagine you've got these 2 rubber bands together, those exercise bands, and they're vibrating and air is passing through them. And as they kind of come close and they vibrate, we've got that frequency that we talked about, right? And I can make them tighter, closer, looser. I can give more air, less air. I can control these things. They're inside here. They're kind of hard to see. But also, we all have a natural range on high and low based on your anatomy, right? We're all human. We've all got the same kind of apparatus, more or less, and most of us. And some are thicker, and some are thinner, and some are a bit longer, and some are a bit shorter, right? So there's some variation in there. So we've all got our own range where we feel comfortable at, right? We're going to discover your range. This is a technique called sirening. Think of it as the siren on an ambulance or an emergency vehicle, right? As they're going through, right? And you have to pull over. Sirening with your voice, you're going to try to do your range from the top to the bottom and back up again. I'm going to demonstrate. And the purpose here is to see what your range is, because you want to be able to go use as much of your range as possible. Let's say you want to be able to utilize all of your range, so you got to know where it is. And number 2, we're going to see if you've got any gaps, or cracks in there. So, sirening, you're going to start at the top, and when I say high and low, this is what I mean. To control these, right, as we said, we have to think about something because I can't see it inside there. I can't see it inside there. But when I try to go higher like this, what I'm really doing is I'm feeling, anyways, it works for me, to feel like I'm tightening my vocal folds, right? It's not technically what's happening, but if I feel like tightening, then I'm going to go higher. And when I think about loosening and relaxing, then I'm going to go lower in my range. So to control that, that's the trick that works for most people. Think about tightening to go higher and loosening to go lower, right here. If you put your hand here, you can feel it. As you talk, you can feel that. So we're going to do some sirening now. Copy me. I'm going to go high. I'm going to think of an alarm. That wasn't too bad, but you noticed at the end there, I kind of got a crack, and I couldn't get as high as I wanted to at the end. Probably because for me, it's 7 in the morning, I just woke up, and this is something you can practice 3 times a day. You're in the shower, do some sirening. You are walking the dog, do some sirening. He'll love it. Sirening, that's going to help you with your range, help you kind of get up a little higher, get down a little lower so you have more of your range, and also get all those notes in between. Sirening is one of my favorite activities. Another activity, I kind of just did it, is to find your baseline pitch by speaking at the top, by speaking at the bottom, and then seeing what's comfortable for you. Why is that important for your baseline? Because that's where you spend most of your time, right? And here's the funny thing, you might not actually be speaking at your baseline. The reason is we get socialized, right? In general, women get socialized at a very young age to speak at a higher pitch range as their baseline than might be actually the case, right? Also, boys, even before puberty, even before they've had that thickening of the vocal folds, they're still socialized as children to speak at a lower range. So it's something that we pick up, but even after your vocal folds have changed, right, then you might find that, oh, I'm actually much more comfortable speaking in this other range. So how do we find that range? First, let's start at the top, then we'll go to the bottom, and then we'll see where you're at in the middle. And this is really important to know your comfortable baseline, because wherever your baseline is, the variations give us the patterns that we're recognizing, right? It doesn't matter where your baseline is, but you should kind of feel where your baseline is. So, number 1, my highest is Minnie Mouse. You know the character Minnie Mouse. So you're going to just talk like this, up like Minnie Mouse, and maybe say what you had for breakfast. It's too early for me. I didn't have any breakfast yet, but maybe you did. And then you're going to think of Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho. And then you're going to talk like Santa Claus and see how that feels to go down very low and sustain that for a little bit. And Santa Claus would like to have some coffee right now. Minnie Mouse? Santa Claus. And then you're somewhere in between. How do you know where you go in between? So, one activity you can do, think about, at least in English, when we say yes, but we don't want to say the word yes, we say Think about that yes, that especially that first part. Right about there, that's going to be my baseline. So instead of saying the part after that, that's going to be where you talk at. So start by saying and then talk about breakfast. So usually I like to have something like vegetables in the morning. I used to eat eggs all the time, but now I find I can't tolerate them. That's my baseline right there. So if you're ever having trouble, or you kind of get off, maybe you're at work and you're speaking in a different work voice for a while, or you're a mother and you're speaking to your kids and you say, that's okay, how do I get back to my me voice? Then that's how you can find your me voice. Speaking of children, again, what's very interesting is in all cultures, doesn't matter the language, doesn't matter if it's a tonal language or not, when we speak to babies, we speak to them using a higher baseline pitch, right? We use the baby voice. Everyone's like, oh yeah, of course we do. But in all cultures, regardless of the language. And here's another fun fact. As little children, if they have a smaller sibling, they're going to speak to that child in a higher baseline pitch too. Clearly they're learning it from us, but that we're socializing them to do that as well. Very interesting. So we can use different baseline pitches for different purposes. We'll definitely talk more about that in advanced intonation next month. Right? So we can find our range with sirening. Right? We can find our baseline. We could do a highest baseline we can get to, lowest baseline we can get to. Now we're going to talk about two more things before we start talking about the patterns. Number one, our variation is not just, am I going up? Am I going down? Is it rising intonation? Is it falling intonation? It's not just that. There's a ton of other variables. We can think about how fast we go, how slow we go, how quickly we go up, how slowly we go down, right? How high, how low, how far are we jumping? Where did we start from, right? What's that? How big is that jump? A lot of things we can add to it as well, like how breathy are we? How choppy are we? So many variables here, just for intonation, and we've got that pitch that we're adding to it. Let me give you an example. There's a technique that I want you to use, super easy. You do it already, probably, but you don't apply it to this kind of thing, maybe. So, for example, I hate the song Happy Birthday. Hate singing Happy Birthday, maybe because it's in the key of G and I just find it really difficult and I don't have a very good singing voice. I don't sing Happy Birthday. If you invite me to your birthday party, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Happy Birthday. I'm just going to hum the rest of it because I like to blend in with the crowd. But I'll start off singing Happy Birthday, but then I'll hum. So if you forget the words to a song, you don't feel like singing Happy Birthday, you're going to be humming. That humming, you probably already do it, and it's a technique that I want you to do to practice intonation, right? When you're shadowing, if you're watching a movie and somebody said something in a way that you want to imitate, you want to mimic, do this humming technique. Why? It takes out all the pesky words. I'm not worried about vowels and consonants and connected speech and rhythm and all that. Humming is great because it's pure intonation. So, what I want to do is I want to talk about 4 things. I want to talk about statements. I want to talk about making lists. I want to talk about open questions and closed questions. A lot of people think that, you just go down in statements and you go up at questions. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And today we're going to talk about that tip a lot, but then next month we're going to talk about the whole iceberg. So I want you to hum these things. Also, another good thing to do is to find a model, right? Somebody whose voice you find interesting because you like how it's conveying the emotions. You like how it seems very authentic. You like how you can really understand what the person is saying behind the words, right? It's not the words, it's not what we say, it's how we say it, for sure. So think about this. It might also reflect, right, your culture, right? Your first culture, your second culture, the culture that you've made for yourself. It might be about approach, right? You might say, I like this person's voice because they sound like this. They sound like a newscaster. They sound like they're talking on a sitcom, right? This person always sounds like they're overreacting to me. They sound like they're complaining, right? All of these things are fine. Just start to recognize them and pick some models. I like this person's voice. I like a part of this voice. I'd like to learn those skills and incorporate that because really, your voice is your choice and you can choose to use this tool in so many ways. And one thing we do is called code switching. So it can be code switching between languages, right? In your first language, your second language, perhaps you're at work and then you're at home, or your kids are at school and then they're at home, or you're talking to friends from back home. You switch, right? You switch languages, and that's not just one little thing you switch. There's a lot of things you switch. Maybe your gestures, right? Maybe the way you hold your mouth. There's so many little things we do when we switch that. We also code switch inside of our language, depending on who we're talking to. So that might mean more or less intonation, right? So in your first language, you might not have all these intonation patterns, But let's say you go to a party and there's a bunch of people there from your first language, right, first culture, then maybe you're going to slip into that intonation pattern. You're going to switch your code. So pick some models, and also remember that it's like a jacket. You can put it on and take it off, right, these accent features. Speaking of which, I'm telling you a bunch of things right now. I'm telling you like facts. If I had a transcript right now, and I were reading it, right, I would be able to see the punctuation. I'd be able to see the period, the commas, maybe the parentheses, the quote marks, the dashes, all of that punctuation. And we can talk a little bit about grammar for a second. A clause is a part or a whole sentence, right? It could be incomplete or it could be complete. So kind of a grammatical definition, whenever you have the end of a clause, at least in English, we're going to go down, and that's this month, right? This month, we're going to practice going down in our intonation, falling intonation, and the reason is, that's not the only way to do it, but next month, we're going to talk about a lot of ways in which you shouldn't. So today, we're going to get these patterns straight so that next month, we can really play with them. So for now, I want you to think of everything as just a fact. Just stating a fact. There's no feeling behind it, negative, positive, or otherwise. It's just a fact. And I'm not trying to do something with my words. I'm not trying to, for example, manipulate you. I'm not trying to get you to give me something. I'm not trying to complain. I'm not doing something with my words. Right now, we're just stating facts. Think about that. So, we just said, statements go down. Where? Think about punctuation. Punctuation. I'm thinking, where's my baseline? And then I'm going to go down. What did I? Wherever my baseline is, I'm going to relax just a little bit. Think about that sirening activity. I like to put my hand near my throat. It kind of reminds me of that. Let's do a little activity. Forget about breakfast right now. Imagine you're a newscaster, but you're just saying what you did last weekend. Why do I say that? So that you do it in kind of a factual way. So let me think, actually. What did I do last weekend? So Saturday, I saw some friends. Try the humming technique for these. Saturday, I saw some friends. And we went swimming. And we went swimming. And we went swimming. So that's what we can call falling intonation, going down with your intonation. You're going to go down slightly wherever your baseline is. Let's say I start at a higher baseline, and let's say that this is my baseline up here. Then I would say, and then we went swimming. And then we went swimming. So it's just a little dip down at the end of wherever you're going to see punctuation. Practice that. Say what you did for your weekend. Use your hand. Relax the voice. Know where your baseline is. That's already a lot of little skills in there for good intonation. And you might be doing this already, and you might notice that you're not. And if you're not, that's okay, but just think about why, because we're going to talk about that why a lot more next month. And always you can come to my office hours on Wednesdays to ask any questions. If you're following along in our June challenge, if you're watching this now, it's June 2023, and I have a challenge each month on a different accent feature. Could be like this. It could be prosody, what we call prosody, or the music of the language, or it could be a pronunciation thing, right? It could be a certain sound, like a TH sound or the American R sound. Every month I have a different challenge, and you're welcome to join that challenge each month to get better in just 10 minutes a day. So we're talking about falling intonation. We said at punctuation, but also there's a couple of other places that you can look at for like a trick, right? Just a little help to find these things. Where do I go down? Punctuation, number one. Number two, what we call the fanboys. I don't know if you've ever heard of fanboys, but this is an easy way to remember the conjunctions in English. And so fanboys is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Anytime you see one of those words, it's an indication that it's a clause. That's the end of a clause. So, you're going to go down. Also, relative clauses like that or which You can go down there as well. Another thing, if you're like not a grammar person, see how I just paused there? If you're not a grammar person, if you're not a when we make big pauses, in writing there might be a comma there, but not always. That pause indicates a clause, and we said we're going to go down at a clause. So that might be things like relative clauses, as we said, or embedded clauses. And you don't have to look up any grammar here, but just think, if I pause, it's probably a clause. And when I pause, I go down. So those are our statements. I want you to just practice following intonation with statements this month, right? I want you to just get a lot of control right here on your vocal folds. So that's a big one. We're going to play around a lot with that next month. Get that perfect. Should be the easiest one, though. Number 2, here's something a lot of people don't know. In a list, it's called listing intonation. So when I have a list of things, let's say 3 or more things, I'm going to have a list, right? I'm going to see some commas. I am going to do something very special with my list. Let's say, start with 3 things, right? Let's say I'm going to the grocery store, and I need 3 things. What do I need? I need eggs, milk, and oranges. Always on the last piece of my list, the last item, I'm always going to go down. And on the other items, I'm going to go up. So this could be an item for this could be a list for the grocery store. This could be a list for listing the benefits of your company, right? This could be a list of things I, want on my bucket list. Doesn't matter. However long the list is, if the list is 50 items long, 49 of those item lists are going to go up, up, in intonation, tighten those vocal folds, up, and the last one is going to go down. The last one is down. Another example. What did I do this morning? When I woke up, I did 3 things already. When I woke up, I fed the dogs, made some tea, and got ready for the live. So those are phrases, right? Those are phrases within there, but it's still a list. And if I were looking at that, I would say comma, comma, and my favorite, hope you're on the same team with me, the Oxford comma. If you know what an Oxford comma is, good for you. If you're using it, even better. The reason I like the Oxford comma is specifically this. For intonation, as we said, there's listing intonation. Sometimes I can't tell if the last 2 items are one thing or if it's 2 separate things with the word and. Let me give you an example. I like peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly. It's not that at 7 a.m. I have some peanut butter and then at 8 a.m. I have some jelly. No, that's a thing that goes together, right? Peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly. So what if I had for breakfast coffee, comma, an apple, comma, and peanut butter and jelly? That's very clear to me now. Peanut butter and jelly is one thing because there's no comma after the and, but there's a comma after there's a comma after the second to last item, and then that and. For example, what if I had now for breakfast, if I had coffee, comma, toast, comma, and eggs, comma, and eggs. Now I've got 2 separate items. My toast is on the left side of my plate. My eggs are on the right side of my plate. They're not touching. But maybe you know this little trick. If you take like a glass and you have a piece of bread or toast and you cut a little circle in there and then you put an egg inside, that could be one thing. That could be toast and eggs. Toast and eggs. I had coffee, comma, an apple, comma, and toast and eggs. Or coffee, comma, an apple, comma, toast and eggs. Then I know what those things are. So if Oxford commas are a complete mystery for you, yeah, I would suggest looking that up real quick. Why? Because if you're working on intonation, that's going to tell you which thing is the last thing. And I need to know for my intonation because remember, the last thing on my list always goes down. Always goes down. The other items go up on my list. Tighten, loosen, right? So far, we've talked about two major things here. If you go to my challenge, then you would get a little bit of work every day making a video of each of these things. For example, one thing would be, make a grocery list, right? Make a grocery list. Next one, make a grocery list with and without an Oxford comma, intonate them differently. Each of these, there's very small tasks every day. 1 minute little video, and you're done for the day. But every day you're getting a little bit better. So now we have two more big things to talk about. And again, if you have any questions, come to my Wednesday office hours. The link is down below in the description on Discord. Questions. A lot of people say, you just go up at a question, right? You just go up at it. Not always. And it really, really depends. For example, we've got two kinds of questions. We're only going to talk about one of them today. Real questions, interrogative questions where I'm looking for an answer, versus next month, we'll talk about rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions are really tricky. They may or may not want an answer. They have a different job to do, these rhetorical questions. So we're going to just put those in our pocket and think about them next time. We have two kinds of real questions that we're going to talk about. So today we're only talking about real questions where I want an answer. Closed questions and open questions. Closed and opened questions, real questions. So a closed question is when somebody asks me something and the answer choices are already there, right? That could be a yes-no question. It's closed. It's yes or it's no, right? They don't want to hear me say maybe, right? They don't want to. I shouldn't be saying maybe, and I shouldn't be saying the answer blue, right? So there's a difference. There is an open question, which anything can be the answer, right? Those are questions that start with who or what or when or where or why or how, right? They're open. You can do whatever you want. Closed questions, you can't say what you want, or at least that's not the design of the question. And a closed question is yes or no, for example, or maybe it's a drop-down menu, or maybe it is a multiple choice kind of thing, but all the answer choices are already there. Those are my closed questions. So a closed question, if the answer is already there, and there's an exception we'll talk about in a second, if a closed question is there, easy. That one I do go up on at the end, right? That one goes up at the end. Now, you might think, well, sometimes I don't. You might not be doing that because actually you're doing a rhetorical question. So right now, practice real closed questions. And just notice if you don't do that sometimes, because we'll talk about that a lot more next month. You're probably doing a rhetorical question, even if you don't mean it. So here's an example of a real closed question with rising intonation at the end. I want to know the answer for you. I would ask, do you eat meat? Do you eat meat? Do you eat meat? I don't know. I don't know if you do or if you don't, and I'm looking to find out. So I'm asking the question. It's a real question. Also, it's a yes-no question because it's a yes or no, so it's a closed question. So I'm going to go up, tighten up at the end of a closed question. The mistake is a lot of people say you go up on all questions, but I want you to go up on closed questions, closed real questions, right? How do you know if a question is a closed question? If you think of the structure or the grammar, in English at least, right? We have certain verbs that we see. So think about these three verbs. We've got verb be, are you, is she, were they, will they, that's verb be. Verb do you, did you, do you, does he, for example. And the verb have you, has he, had they, right? It could also be the tense, it could be past, it could be present, it could be future. Those are going to be indications that I'm doing a closed question. If you're having trouble finding closed questions, think about those verbs there. So we've got closed questions. Now I'm going to tell you about the open questions, and then maybe something that's quite tricky a little bit in questions, but it's not rhetorical. Open questions. Okay. Open questions, real questions. Again, not rhetorical questions. If you're not doing them in this pattern, you might think about why. Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe you're doing the right thing, but I'm just talking about open, real questions. How do I find them? They've got a who, what, when, where, why, how, right? They've got those WH words, except for how. Not technically WH, but we say it is. Open questions, I'm looking for information. I don't have any special intonation here. That's next month. I'm not being necessarily friendly, but I'm looking for facts right now, right? There's two things to remember with open questions. Number one, you're going to go up, up, tighten up on the question word, the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, the how. You're going to go up on the question word itself, but then at the end of the question, you're going to go down, right? Just like we did for statements. So up, da-da-da-da-da, baseline, down. So you could think of it as stepping down some stairs. What are you gonna do? How old are you? How old are you? How old are you? Who, what, when, what, when. When is the exam gonna be? Who, what, when, where. Where did you say her house was? Where did you say her house was? If you're saying, where did you say her house was? Where did you say her house was? Where did you say her house was? They're not wrong questions, but they're rhetorical in nature. There's something else going on there. Right now, for pure information, for getting information, up on the question word, baseline for the rest, except the last, then you're going to go down at the end. Those are our open questions. So if you join my challenge, you'll get some practice with this every single day to do these. One more kind of question, right? Remember, closed questions go up at the end. Open questions go up on the question word and then down at the end. But we have, it's not a rhetorical question. It's a real question. I'm looking for an answer, but it's kind of tricky. So when we say the word or, it could be a closed question in the sense of, it could be two kinds of closed questions. It could be closed in the sense of, here are your two choices. Do you want this one or this one? Or an or question could be, do you want these or something else, right? And it could be leaving the door open for something. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm on a plane. I think you do some things on the, well, not these days. I think you decide now what you're going to eat before when you buy your ticket online. But I remember the old days when you would have a stewardess who came around and they would ask you, oh, would you like chicken or fish? Chicken or fish? And you knew those were the only options, right? In the old days, there weren't anymore. Because I'll tell you, I'm going to date myself here. I'm 44 years old. So when you ask me, how old are you? Right? You might be thinking, I'm 112. Or you might be a small child and you're thinking, Grandma, how old are you? How old are you? Or you might be thinking that somebody's acting really immature and you might say, how old are you? All that's rhetorical. So especially when you ask how old somebody is, watch out for that. My age is such that when I was younger, taking a plane, there was no choice. There were not a lot of choices anyways in the food. So it was a closed question. Do you want this or do you want this? And that pattern told me I couldn't ask for peanut butter and jelly. Right? I couldn't ask for beef, right? If it wasn't on the menu, it wasn't on the menu. But now let's take another example. You are inviting a friend over and you're trying to decide what to have for dinner. And in the fridge, you know you've got some chicken and you know you've got some fish. But you have other choices. You could go out, you could go to the store, you could get some stuff, you could rummage in the pantry a little bit and find something else that you didn't think about. So, on the plane, do you want chicken or fish? It's a little bit like listing intonation, right? I'm letting you know that those are the only choices, but now I'm going to have an or in my question, but I'm also going to leave the door open, so it's kind of like an open question as well. You want chicken or fish? Do you want chicken or fish? ... or something else is what I'm implying. So now we're bridging the territory of rhetorical questions a little bit. But whenever you see that or question, if you see it in writing, it's going to be really difficult because you can't see the intonation of somebody. This is why when we text, sarcasm is really difficult often, and some of these other things are really difficult. We have emojis to help us out now, but the intonation is kind of lost in there. Here's a good example. The or thing could be closed, or it could be open. So watch out for that. We've got two kinds of questions, closed and open, and we talked about this tricky kind of third one. We'll talk a lot more about that next month. Remember, this is basic intonation, but if you're not sure about something, come to Wednesday office hours. They're always free. The link is down below, and you can join my Discord because that's where all the cool kids hang out. So we said real questions versus rhetorical questions. We said open questions versus closed questions. We talked about a listing intonation. We talked about statements and how right now I just want to go down on my statements. And how do I go down? I loosen my vocal folds. I relax a little bit. For me, it helps to put my hand here and think about like opening a little bit. And then to go higher and go tighter, then I feel like I like to think about this happening. It's not actually what's happening. Remember, your vocal folds are kind of like those exercise bands, those stretchy bands or rubber bands. They're thin and kind of floppy, and when they vibrate at a certain frequency or pitch, and it's those patterns that we control that other people notice. And they get something out of that. So they're going to know if this question is a real question or a rhetorical question. If you're doing it right, they're going to know, for example, in the or question, if they only have those choices or if they're allowed to suggest something else. Next month, we're going to talk about even more things, sarcasm, all the verbs, all the emotions in the world. No, not all of them, but quite a lot of examples. And for now, what I want you to do is, if this is something that's important to you, being better understood and communicating better through your voice, maybe for at work or for your personal objectives, please join my club because I've got a challenge for you this month. And this month, because we're starting it on Discord, this month there's a free trial. So this is June 2023, and I hope to see you guys starting that challenge. And if not, I hope to see you on Wednesdays. The other thing we're doing right now is every week we're going live on Wednesdays just before office hours to talk about AI right now, because June 2023, this is still pretty fresh, and we're giving people little tips every week, one little tip or strategy that they can do to work on their language or their accent using AI, because I know it's happening really quickly. We're getting bombarded with a lot of things, so we want to just slow down and give you one tip every week. And you can see in my channel, there's some backlogs of those tips. And hopefully we'll see you there. We'll see you live there. We'll see you live at office hours, or I'll see you in the Challenge Club. So next month is going to be July 2023, Advanced Intonation. Bye for now.